"What have you done?" the Council Prime demanded, its voice now carrying undertones of something it hadn't felt in cosmic ages. Fear. Chen's expression remained perfectly calm. "We studied you. All of you. For 50 years since first contact. While you dismissed us as barely sapient apes, humanity has been learning. We cataloged your technologies, mapped your territories, identified your strengths." She paused, her smile returning. "And your weaknesses." The Galaxy Council thought humanity was too primitive to be a threat, until we discovered we could erase gods from existence with the push of a button. The massive crystalline chambers of the Galactic Council hummed with the collective consciousness of 1,000 alien species, towering bioluminescent beings, crystalline entities that sang in harmonics beyond human comprehension, and gas cloud intelligences that had existed since the birth of stars themselves, all gathered in judgment of one small blue planet. Ambassador, Chen Wei stood alone at the center of the vast amphitheater, her human form dwarfed by the cosmic court surrounding her. The translation matrix buzzed around her head like an angry wasp, converting her words into the million dialects of the assembled species. "The human species," intoned the Council Prime, a massive creature resembling a living mountain with eyes. "Like dying suns, has been found guilty of 17 violations of galactic preservation law. Your kind's expansion rate exceeds acceptable parameters by 400%. Your resource consumption violates the Harmony Accords. Most damning of all, you have weaponized stellar engineering." Chen's jaw tightened. The humans had indeed learned to manipulate stars, not to destroy, but to create. They had kindled dead suns back to life, bringing warmth to frozen worlds. But the Council saw only the potential for destruction. "The sentence is containment," the Council Prime continued, its voice like grinding tectonic plates. "Humanity will be restricted to your home system. Any attempt to leave will result in immediate sterilization. You have 72 standard hours to recall all human vessels and colonies. This is our mercy." The chamber fell silent except for the subsonic rumbling of the Council Prime's breathing. Chen looked up at the assembled might of the galaxy. Species that had conquered black holes, entities that had survived the heat death of previous universes, beings so ancient they remembered when the Milky Way was young. "And if we refuse?" Chen asked quietly. A sound like cosmic laughter echoed through the chamber. The Vex High representative, a creature of pure psychic energy contained within a suit of living metal, projected its amusement directly into the minds of all present. "Refuse?" it whispered telepathically. "Little human, your entire species couldn't scratch the hull of a single council dreadnought. Your most powerful weapons are toys compared to forces that reshape reality itself. There is no refusing. There is only compliance or extinction." Chen nodded slowly, her face impassive. "I see. Then I formally request the traditional 72 hours to deliver our response to the human government." "Granted," rumbled the Council Prime. "Use your time wisely, Ambassador Chen. It may be the last your species enjoys in freedom." As Chen was escorted from the chamber, none of the ancient beings noticed the slight smile that played at the corners of her mouth. They had made a critical error in their vast cosmic wisdom. They had assumed that humanity would respond like every other species they had encountered in their millions of years of existence. They were about to learn why that assumption would be their greatest mistake. 71 hours later, the Galaxy Council reconvened. The cosmic amphitheater buzzed with anticipation. In their collective memory spanning eons, no species had ever rejected their ultimatum. Some had begged, others had offered tribute beyond imagination, but none had ever simply refused. Chen walked into the chamber with the same measured stride as before, but something had changed. Where before she had seemed small and isolated, now she moved with the confidence of someone holding 4 aces in a cosmic poker game. "The human government has reviewed your terms," Chen announced, her voice carrying clearly through the translation matrix. "We respectfully decline." The silence that followed was so profound that several younger species checked their auditory organs to ensure they still functioned. The Council Prime's eyes flared brighter, casting shadows across the chamber walls. "You decline." The ancient being's voice carried a note of something it hadn't felt in millennia. Confusion. Ambassador Chen, perhaps the translation matrix malfunctioned. We offered you containment as an alternative to complete extinction. There is no declining. There is only the choice between a cage and death. Chen's smile widened. With respect, honored Council Prime, you've been dealing with the same types of species for so long that you've forgotten there might be other options. You see, while you were congratulating yourselves on your mercy, humanity was busy doing what we do best. And what might that be, little human? The Vex High's mental voice dripped with condescension. We were preparing for war. The chamber erupted in what could only be described as cosmic laughter. Beings that had witnessed the birth and death of galaxies found the concept of humanity preparing for war against them so absurd that several actually began leaking exotic matter from their amusement. The Council Prime's voice shook the very foundations of the station. Child, your entire species possesses perhaps 50,000 combat vessels. The Council commands fleets that darken star systems. We have weapons that can crack planets like eggs and devices that turn suns into bombs. What possible preparation could you have made? Chen reached into her diplomatic pouch and withdrew a small, unremarkable device no larger than a human thumb. The Council's most advanced sensors immediately focused on it, trying to determine its function. What they found made no sense. It appeared to be nothing more than a simple quantum transmitter. You're right, Chen said calmly. Humanity can't match your firepower. We can't field fleets that block out stars or command the cosmic forces you wield. But you made one crucial error in your calculations. She held up the device. You assumed we would fight fair. Chen pressed a single button on the device. For exactly 3.7 seconds, nothing happened. The Council members exchanged glances. Those that had eyes to exchange, several began to radiate what could only be interpreted as disappointment mixed with pity for the obviously delusional human species. Then the reports started coming in. The first to speak was Kexlor the Timekeeper, a being that existed partially, outside normal space-time and could observe events across the galaxy simultaneously. Its crystalline form began to vibrate at frequencies that translated as pure panic. Council Prime, it said, its voice breaking across several dimensions. I'm detecting massive gravitational anomalies in the Andromeda spiral. Something is wrong with the Zetarhi homeworld. The Council Prime's attention shifted instantly to the long-range sensors. The Zetarhi were one of the Council's founding members, a species so advanced they had learned to live inside stars themselves. Their homeworld was a carefully maintained stellar nursery containing over 40 billion souls. The sensor data made no sense. Where the Zetarhi homeworld should have been, there was only empty space. Not destroyed, simply gone, as if it had never existed. Impossible, breathed the Cathara representative, a hive-mind consciousness spanning 17 different species. The Zetarhi homeworld is protected by reality anchors. It exists in a locked temporal bubble. Nothing can simply erase it from Council Prime. The emergency klaxons of a dozen different species began blaring simultaneously. The hegemony of Suns reports their capital system has vanished. No wreckage, no energy signatures, it's just gone. The Crystal Confederacy is reporting the same. Their entire home cluster has been removed. The Voidwalkers' Dark Fleet, 7,000 ships. They're not responding. Their last known position shows only empty space. Chen stood calmly, in the center of the growing chaos, watching as report after report flooded in. Homeworlds, capital systems, entire stellar confederations, all simply vanishing without a trace. The most advanced civilizations in the galaxy, protected by technology beyond human comprehension, were disappearing like they had never existed. The Council Prime's voice cut through the panic like a gravity wave. Silence! The chamber instantly stilled. Ancient eyes that had watched galaxies spiral into being focused on the small human with an intensity that would have vaporized lesser beings. You see, Chen continued, ignoring the growing hysteria around her. Every species in this council achieved faster than light travel the same way. You all discovered how to manipulate space-time, how to fold reality, how to step outside normal physics. You're also advanced that you've forgotten the fundamental rules that govern existence itself. The Vex High representative projected raw confusion into the chamber. What rules? We transcended such limitations eons ago. Exactly. Chen's voice carried a note of something that made several council members' survival instincts suddenly start screaming. You forgot about cause and effect. You became so used to manipulating reality that you stopped considering the consequences of existing outside it. She gestured to the chaos around them as more reports of vanishing civilizations poured in. Humanity never developed your reality-bending technology. We're still bound by the basic laws of physics, which means we're still anchored to the fundamental quantum substrate of existence, and that gave us an advantage you never considered. The temperature in the chamber began to drop as several species involuntarily activated their defensive protocols. We can't fold space-time, Chen continued conversationally. We can't step outside reality or manipulate the fabric of existence. But we can do something you've forgotten how to do. We can cut the quantum threads that keep reality manipulating beings tethered to existence itself. The Council Prime's massive form began to tremble. That's impossible. The quantum substrate is universal. It can't be severed. You're right. It can't be severed from the inside, but it can be severed from beings that have separated themselves from baseline reality. Every time you fold space, every time you step outside normal physics, you create quantum entanglement bridges back to real space-time and humanity. Chen's smile became predatory. Humanity just learned how to cut those bridges. The realization hit the chamber like a supernova. These ancient beings, these cosmic gods who had transcended physical limitations, had made themselves vulnerable to something no advanced species had ever needed to fear, an attack from baseline reality itself. You're erasing us from existence, whispered the Cathara hive mind, its voice carrying the terror of 17 different species. Not killing us, actually removing us from the quantum foundation of reality. Only the ones who voted for humanity's containment, Chen replied pleasantly. We're not monsters. The 47 species that abstained or voted against the ultimatum are perfectly safe. Their quantum signatures remain intact. As if summoned by her words, the chamber's main display activated, showing the real-time status of the galaxy. Red indicators marked the locations of vanished civilizations, all of them council members who had voted for humanity's imprisonment. The pattern was clear and terrifying in its precision. The Stellar Dominion thought their fortress worlds could withstand anything, Chen narrated as the display zoomed in on empty star systems. They were right. Their defenses were impregnable. Unfortunately, we didn't attack their worlds. We simply removed their quantum existence codes from the universal substrate. Reality forgot they ever existed. The infinite fleet of the Cyber Collective. 10 million ships with the combined processing power of 1,000 civilizations. They calculated every possible human strategy, except the one where we don't fight their ships at all. We just deleted the quantum information that allows their consciousness to interface with this dimension. The display shifted again, showing more empty space where once mighty empires had reigned. The Time Lords of Epsilon Eridani, masters of temporal manipulation who could rewrite history itself. But history is just information, and information can be corrupted. We introduced quantum viruses into their temporal editing matrices. They tried to erase our attack from the timeline and ended up erasing themselves instead. The few remaining council members who had voted for containment began backing away from Chen, their various forms of movement creating a bizarre choreography of cosmic terror. You're wondering how we discovered this capability, Chen continued, her voice taking on the tone of a professor delivering a lecture. It started with something simple. Humans are the only known species that experiences what we call quantum consciousness dreams, brief moments where our minds naturally interface with the quantum substrate during REM sleep. Your scientists dismissed it as an evolutionary quirk. It wasn't a quirk. It was an adaptation. Humanity evolved on a world where the quantum substrate was unusually active. We didn't just develop consciousness, we developed quantum native consciousness. Our minds naturally exist in baseline reality in a way yours haven't for millions of years. The Council Prime's voice came out as barely a whisper, though it still shook the chamber. How many? How many what? Chen asked pleasantly. How many of us can you erase? Chen consulted a tablet that materialized in her hand. At last count, all of you. Every single species that has transcended baseline reality is vulnerable. The more advanced you are, the more tenuous your connection to fundamental existence becomes. We've mapped every council member's quantum signature. We know exactly which threads to cut. The mighty council that had ruled the galaxy for millions of years sat in stunned silence. Species that had commanded the power of quasars, entities that had survived the heat death of previous universes, beings that had achieved godhood by any reasonable definition, all reduced to terrified children, in the presence of a single human diplomat. What do you want? The question came from Nexus 9, a collective consciousness of pure energy that had once been powerful enough to rewrite the laws of physics in local space. Now its voice carried only desperate fear. Chen's expression softened slightly. What we've always wanted, to be left alone to grow and explore, to take our place among the stars without arbitrary restrictions or threats of extinction. The containment order is hereby rescinded, the Council Prime said quickly. Humanity is granted full galactic citizenship with all associated rights and protections. That's a start, Chen acknowledged. But it's not enough. You see, the problem with power is that it corrupts. You've spent so long being the ultimate authority in this galaxy that you've forgotten what it means to coexist with equals. She gestured to the empty space on the display where dozens of civilizations had once existed. These species chose to treat humanity as insects to be contained or exterminated. They forgot that sometimes the insect has a stinger. We're going to make sure that mistake is never repeated. The chamber waited in breathless terror for her next words. From this day forward, the Galactic Council will include human representation proportional to our population and territorial holdings. Any future votes regarding species containment or extinction must be unanimous, including human approval. And most importantly, Chen's smile returned, cold as the vacuum between stars. Humanity will serve as the Council's enforcement arm for baseline reality. Any species that threatens others with extinction will deal with us. You're making yourselves the galaxy's police force, observed the Cathara hive mind, its 17 voices speaking in unison. No, Chen corrected. We're making ourselves the galaxy's executioners. There's a difference. Police arrest criminals. Executioners simply remove problems. 6 months later, the galaxy had settled into an uneasy new equilibrium. The surviving council members spoke in hushed tones about the quantum holocaust, the day when humanity had casually erased 43 of the most powerful civilizations in galactic history without firing a single shot. Trade routes that had been closed to humanity for centuries suddenly opened. Technologies that had been deemed too advanced for primitive species were quietly shared. The universal translation protocols were updated to include Human Standard as one of the primary diplomatic languages. But it was the fear that truly changed everything. For the first time in millions of years, the advanced species of the galaxy remembered what it felt like to be prey. The hegemony of suns, one of the surviving powers, attempted to test humanity's resolve by raiding a human mining colony in the Outer Rim. The attack lasted exactly 14 minutes before the entire hegemony simply ceased to exist. No warning, no negotiation, no mercy. Reality itself simply forgot they had ever existed. Ambassador Chen, now bearing the official title of Human Representative and Quantum Enforcement Director, stood before the reconstituted council as reports of the hegemony's disappearance filtered in. Any questions about humanity's commitment to galactic peace? She asked pleasantly. The silence was absolute. Captain Sarah Martinez, commander of the Earth Defense Force flagship Indomitable, watched from the observation deck as her small fleet of human vessels moved freely through space that had been forbidden to them just months ago. Alien ships that once would have fired on sight now gave them respectful berth. their crews no doubt aware that the strange primates from Sol 3 had somehow become the most feared species in the galaxy. "Ma'am," her communications officer reported, "we're receiving priority hails from 17 different species requesting trade negotiations. Also, the Crystalline Collective is asking if we'd be interested in a mutual defense pact." Sarah laughed. 6 months ago, the Crystalline Collective had voted to glass Earth's surface. Now they wanted humanity's protection. "How the mighty have fallen," she murmured. In the depths of human space, Dr. Elena Vasquez stood before the massive quantum processing arrays that had made humanity's revolution possible. The technology was beautiful in its simplicity. Unlike the reality-warping engines of the Council species, human quantum manipulation worked with the fundamental structure of existence rather than against it. "Status report," she asked her team. "Quantum mapping is complete on another 47 species," reported her lead technician. "All confirmed as vulnerable to reality disconnection. That brings our total coverage to 98% of all. Council members." Elena nodded grimly. The terrible irony wasn't lost on her. The more advanced a species became, the more vulnerable they were to humanity's ultimate weapon. The council members had transcended physical limitations by stepping outside the quantum substrate that defined existence itself. In doing so, they had made themselves dependent on increasingly tenuous connections to reality. Humanity, in their primitive state, remained fully anchored to baseline existence. They couldn't manipulate space-time or transcend physical laws, but they also couldn't be erased from reality because they had never left it in the first place. "Any word from the deep space monitoring stations?" Elena asked. "Yes, ma'am, we're detecting quantum signatures from approximately 40,000 unknown species beyond the galactic rim. All appear to have achieved post-reality transcendence." Elena felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. 40,000 species that humanity had never encountered, all potentially hostile, all vulnerable to the same quantum disconnection that had humbled the Council. "Prepare expansion protocols," she ordered. "If there are threats beyond our galaxy, we need to reach them before they reach us." 1 year after what galactic historians would later call the Quantum Reckoning, the transformed Council convened for its first session under the new order. The chamber was noticeably smaller. Nearly half of the original members had been erased from existence for various acts of aggression or defiance. Chen, now flanked by a full human diplomatic corps, took her place not as a supplicant, but as an equal among the survivors. The other species regarded her with a mixture of respect, fear, and barely concealed resentment. "Today's agenda," announced the Council Prime, its voice noticeably more subdued than in the past, "includes trade dispute resolution between the EO Methane Collective and the Silicon Brotherhood, territorial rights in the Vega sector, and," it paused, "humanity's request for expanded quantum enforcement protocols." A ripple of unease passed through the chamber. In the past year, human quantum enforcement had become the galaxy's most effective deterrent to aggression. Species that had warred for millennia suddenly found themselves cooperating rather than risk the ultimate sanction. Chen stood to address the Council. "Honored members, humanity's Quantum Enforcement Division has identified several emerging threats that require immediate attention. The Devourers of Worlds in the Magellanic Clouds have resumed their expansion after a 1,000-year dormancy. The Void Cultists are attempting to weaponize black holes again. And most concerning, we've detected signs that the predecessors may be returning from their exile beyond the cosmic horizon." The chamber fell into shocked silence. The predecessors were legends, beings so ancient and powerful that even the current council members spoke of them only in whispers. "If they were truly returning, what do you recommend?" asked the Council Prime, and the fact that it was asking a human for strategic advice would have been unthinkable just a year ago. "We recommend preemptive quantum disconnection for any species that proves actively hostile to galactic stability," Chen replied matter-of-factly. "And we recommend that the Council begin preparing for the possibility that we may need to defend this galaxy against threats from beyond it." She paused, letting the implication sink in. "Humanity is prepared to serve as the Council's sword against these threats, but we will do so as equals, not as contained primitives. The age of human subjugation is over." The age of human protection has begun. 5 years after the quantum reckoning, humanity had evolved from a barely tolerated species to the galaxy's ultimate arbiters of existence. Human quantum enforcement stations orbited strategic points throughout galactic civilization, their crews maintaining constant watch over the quantum substrate that held reality together. Admiral Chen Wei, she had been promoted from her diplomatic post, stood on the bridge of humanity's first dedicated quantum warfare vessel, the Reality's Edge. Through the viewport, she could see the bustling traffic of New Geneva Station, humanity's first major construction beyond Earth space. Alien species that had once considered humans beneath notice now lined up for the privilege of trading with the Quantum Guardians. "Admiral," her quantum operations officer reported, "we're detecting reality fluctuations in the Perseus arm. Looks like someone's trying to create an unauthorized dimensional breach." "Species identification?" "Unknown, ma'am. The quantum signature doesn't match any known civilization." Chen's expression hardened. In the 5 years since humanity had claimed its position as the galaxy's enforcer, they had encountered increasingly exotic threats. Species from alternate dimensions, time-traveling conquerors from possible futures, even entities that existed as pure information attempting to rewrite the universe's source code. All had learned the same lesson. Reality belonged to those who had never left it. "Dispatch a quantum severing probe," Chen ordered. "Standard message. By order of the Galactic Council and the Human Quantum Enforcement Division, you are in violation of reality integrity protocols. Cease dimensional manipulation immediately, or face disconnection from existence." Message sent, Admiral. No response from the unknowns. Then they've made their choice. Initiate quantum disconnection in 3, 2, 1. The reality fluctuations ceased instantly, as the unknown entities were simply removed from the quantum substrate of existence. Whatever they had been, wherever they had come from, they no longer existed in any meaningful sense. Chen turned back to the reports flooding her command station. 3 more attempted invasions from parallel universes, 2 reality hackers trying to rewrite the laws of physics, and 1 particularly ambitious species attempting to achieve transcendence by consuming the quantum foam that held space-time together. All would be dealt with in the same way, quick, clean, and absolute. In the executive chambers of New Geneva Station, Chen met with the other members of humanity's governing council. The weight of their responsibility was staggering. They had become the guardians not just of Earth, but of reality itself. "The philosophical implications are disturbing," admitted Dr. Elena Vasquez, now head of the Quantum Sciences Division. "We've essentially become existence's immune system, destroying anything that threatens the stability of reality." "Are we still human?" asked General Marcus Stone, head of Human Military Command. "We're erasing entire species from existence based on our judgment of what constitutes a threat. How is that different from what the Council was doing to us?" Chen considered the question carefully. It was one that had haunted her in the quiet moments between crises. "The difference," she said finally, "is choice. The Council threatened to cage or kill us for the crime of existing and growing. We only act against species that actively threaten others. The devourers of worlds had consumed 17 civilizations before we stopped them. The reality hackers were literally trying to rewrite existence to make themselves gods. The void cultists wanted to feed inhabited star systems to black holes." She gestured toward the display showing galactic civilization, more peaceful and prosperous than it had been in millennia. "We didn't ask for this power, but we won't abandon the responsibility it brings. Someone has to guard the guards. Someone has to ensure that transcendence doesn't become tyranny." "And if we become the tyrants?" pressed Dr. Vasquez. Chen's smile was sad but determined. "Then I suppose someone will have to stop us too. But until that day comes, we stand watch. Because the alternative is chaos, and chaos means death for billions of innocent beings." Outside the station's windows, the galaxy continued its ancient dance. Ships from 100 species moved peacefully through space that had once been claimed by cosmic gods. Trade flowed freely between worlds that had been isolated by fear for eons. Children of a dozen different species played together on stations where their ancestors had been forbidden to even meet. It was a peace bought with the ultimate price, the knowledge that humanity could unmake any threat to that peace with a single quantum pulse, but it was peace nonetheless. 50 years after the quantum reckoning, Ambassador Chen Wei's great-granddaughter stood before a new generation of galactic representatives. The galaxy had changed beyond recognition, peaceful, prosperous, and unified under the protection of humanity's quantum guardians. But the universe was vast, and new threats emerged constantly. Reports were coming in of something stirring in the dark matter between galaxies, entities so ancient they predated reality itself. The war for existence was far from over. The Council recognizes Representative Chen Okafor of the Human Federation, announced the current Council Prime, a much more humble entity than its predecessor. Chen Okafor stood, her quantum enforcement badge gleaming on her uniform. Behind her, the quantum monitoring stations reported all clear across 17 different dimensions of existence. "Honored Council members," she began, her voice carrying the quiet confidence that had become humanity's trademark. "I'm pleased to report that reality remains stable across all monitored sectors. However, we have detected several anomalies that require immediate attention." As she spoke, alien representatives who commanded the power of stars listened with careful attention to every word. They had learned the most important lesson in galactic history. Evolution might favor the strong, but existence belonged to those who had never forgotten where they came from. Humanity had gone from ignored primitives to the galaxy's ultimate authority, not through technological superiority or military might, but through the simple fact that they had remained grounded in the fundamental reality that all other species had abandoned in their quest for transcendence. They had become the universe's anchor, holding everything else in existence through their unbreakable connection to what was real, and they would continue to stand guard, protecting the galaxy from threats both within and beyond, for as long as reality itself endured. In the end, the greatest power in the universe wasn't the ability to transcend existence. It was the wisdom to never abandon it in the first place.